You go from being an office administrator to being a head of department with an equity stake in one of the fastest growing prop tech companies in the UK.
100%. It's nuts.
Well, welcome everybody to another great episode. We've got another special guest in the building. I'm going to introduce him. His name is Sam, and he works for an amazing, innovative prop tech company called Hello Neighbour. So, welcome to the show, Sam. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful. Even though it's a weekend, you've given up your time generously. How long has it been since we watched that Manchester game together? It was like about a week, 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I reckon it was a couple of weeks ago. I'm still mourning the loss, but it was good times.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have brought up memory. All I can think about really is that nice grilled chicken that we had afterwards, to be honest.
Priorities.
I know. But listen, thanks so much again, genuinely, for coming on the show. It's great for people to hear. You go on YouTube and you see all these thumbnails, 0 to 10 million and earning £10,000 a month because people have done these crazy businesses. I don't know how much of them are true or not, but you don't get many tips and advice from people who are actually working for other people but have achieved success. And I want to shine a light on people like that, like yourself, like me, who have, climbed the ranks from administrator level to coordinator, manager, etc. So why don't you tell people what your role is and a bit more about the company?
Yeah, thank you. So I manage the property management department at Hello Neighbour. We're a prop tech startup. We're definitely the fastest growing letting agent in London, potentially the fastest growing in the UK over the last 12 months. We're slightly unsure about Scotland and Wales. They're hard to measure. They're different areas we've not expanded into yet. We're trying to do multiple different things. Primarily create an online platform that will allow landlords to carry out tenant finds themselves and manage properties themselves without actually needing a letting agent at all. We are, however, acutely aware that there's a large percentage of landlords that simply want to be hands-off and don't want to do this themselves. And we will also offer those services ourselves as well. We offer them for a lower cost and with what we consider to be much higher levels of customer service than the high street offer. And we apply that mentality and our core values to not just landlords, but to tenants as well. So I've been with them for about 18 months. And yeah, it's just absolutely exploded. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by the company. When you were first telling me about it all that while ago, you never really think about innovation and technology in property and letting space, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, because I think it's incredibly exciting about what the company is doing. So how much do you guys ever sort of have a bit of a branding or an identity kind of thing where you talk about, are we a lettings agency and a technology startup? Talk to me a bit about that journey.
It is an interesting one. We consider ourselves to be a tech startup, but at the moment, like we have multiple different teams. In the office, we've got one head office in London, and we've got 3 different teams that do operations. And I consider my team to be part of sort of the operations. We're boots on the ground, managing properties, looking after tenants, looking after landlords. But then we do have like a head of product and 10, 15 devs out there as well. And we work with the head of product closely. And ultimately, there is going to be a tipping point where at the moment, most of our revenue is coming from managing properties and carrying out tenant finds and acting like a letting agent. And this software that we're creating, we're using it internally ourselves. So we're basically beta testing it. But there's going to be a tipping point where we have a public release and hopefully we have thousands of landlords use it themselves. And that's when we'll really sort of pivot and we'll always offer this exceptional tenant find and management service. But hopefully we'll be able to transition a lot of landlords and empower them to do it themselves. So we consider ourselves to be a tech startup, and we definitely are, but the focus of the company is going to shift over time. It's going to be an interesting journey.
How interesting. So effectively, the company is using itself as the pilot in some respects and
Yeah.
building its
So
connections and brand.
we're proving that the software works. So the average high street letting agent might have five or six or maybe even 10 new properties a month. We're averaging nearly 200 a month at the moment.
Oh,
So we're magnitudes more than your normal high street letting agent. And we're successfully winning all of these new instructions, all of these new landlords, and carrying out these tenant finds, this management service with this software that we've created. Um, and it's a journey. It gets better over time. There's more functionality being added to it constantly, but it's incredible seeing it develop, seeing it progress.
and once you build this software and this product, as you say, you will then release it and it will take on a life of its own. And it's something that you'll see potentially demos of. And I guess it will re-engineer your website and how you get the offer out there in the market, presumably. That's quite interesting. You mentioned fast growing. So when you joined 18 months ago, what was the size of the company and what is it now?
I think I was like maybe the 13th or 14th person to join the company. We've now got in excess of 60 people. In 18 months, it's gone up by five or six or seven times, at least, maybe even 10 times what it was when I started. And the numbers of landlords that we're bringing on every month is increasing. So we're targeted at the moment with 170 to 200 new instructions a month. And by the end of the year, that'll probably be close to 300. So our portfolio of properties when I joined was, it was between 50 and 100. But this time next year, we're going to be thousands, multiple
Wow.
thousands of properties. Um, and that's in an industry that's currently struggling. Like the housing industry at the moment it's tenants
Mm.
are strapped, landlords are struggling with their mortgages, people are selling, landlords are exiting the industry. But because we're able to offer the same service as the high street, better, I think, but at a lower cost, a lot of landlords are actually seeing us as the solution rather than another agent looking to take money. Because we cost landlords maybe half or even a third of what the high street does over the course of the average tenancy.
So you went from being one of the original founding 13 members of staff
Yeah.
to now being a 60 plus team running this company. Have you worked in startups before? What's it like working in a startup environment?
It's been fascinating, actually. It's been really interesting. I've not worked in a startup before. I didn't really know what to expect. When I joined, there was one property manager and myself in the team. Um, and and that team has now ballooned. We've just made an offer on our seventh property manager. We've got an admin person in the team as well. So that's just grown exponentially to cope with this high level of new properties. And that, it's amazing seeing how quickly we're making progress. Um, Sometimes it can feel like every day is a sprint. So it's incredibly rewarding. But yeah, you definitely got to be up for a challenge.
Yeah, I know what it feels like when every day is constant growth and you've got team members who are experiencing that with you. But I guess a segue to that is how do you manage team well-being? How do they relate to the growth? Do people know that when they're coming in or do they get a bit of a
Yeah.
shock?
So we have core values. Like one of my favorite things about this company actually has nothing to do with the growth and the progress it's making. My favorite thing, truthfully, about Hello Neighbour, are these core values that the founders of the company have instilled. Um, One of the things they want to do, our big ethos is changing lettings for good. We want to do that in all sorts of different ways, but there is a lack of careness, kindness, and transparency in lettings. It's known as a cutthroat industry. Tenants hate estate agents, landlords hate estate agents,
Mm.
um, and we want to change that perception. But we apply those values internally as well. So to people in the company, like um, everyone that stays with us for a certain period of time gets offered equity in the company. We have
Wow.
amazing training schemes that we'll fund. So we'll pay for every single person in the company is offered like an ALA qualification, and it's small things as well. It's the having your birthday off. It's the getting a bit more leave every year. These are not normal things in the industry. It's certainly not things that I've seen before.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an expectation of like be ready for a sprint. but those values of kindness and fairness, they're applied to us as well. If we make a success of this, which is going to happen, we're all going to be carried up on this journey with the company.
I like that. I think a lot of companies do really move away from values or don't really have a core purpose. And even if they have values, they don't really practice them. And it's nice to see a company that actually is taking care of its team and actually giving them equity and days off. There's people, if you hear about all this hybrid working and stuff like that, there's a lot of
Yeah,
lack of trust of people working from home, for example. And
sure.
a lot of people are more productive at home. So it just depends on the values and the philosophy and the outlook you have on kind of company culture that you want to create. It looks like Hello Neighbour's got a great culture environment.
It's really interesting because I've I've worked for a lot of companies before that say they've got values, but I've
Mm,
never actually seen it really. But we talk about them on an almost daily basis, and you
wow.
see it in the biggest strategic decisions, right at the top with the leadership team and the board. Um, but it filters all the way down to day decisions that boots on the ground property managers are making. Like, when we're dealing with a deposit dispute with a tenant, what is fair? What is reasonable?
Mm,
Not just fair for the landlord, but what's fair for the tenant? What's fair based on all these complicated situations that have happened over the course of the tenancy? Um, it's the ways that we charge landlords. We don't have hidden fees. We're transparent in what we do. Um, and
mm,
every single landlord that we work with is not actually locked in to staying with us. So normally what happens if you have a property and you want to let it is that they will lock you in for as long as they possibly can to stay with them, and they will never let you go. And they'll threaten you with all sorts of extortionate fees if you want to leave.
mm,
But what we offer landlords, if they want to come use us for property management, is just a 1 month rolling contract because our core values are fairness and transparency. So we
mm,
want our landlords to want to be with us, not to be with us because they have to be. So you can leave at any time if you ever think we're offering a service that isn't fair, that is too expensive, or you think we're not, for whatever reason, you're not happy. Um, but we're confident that you won't. Our retention rates are incredibly high, and we're keeping people based on customer service. We're keeping people because we're doing a good job.
mm,
And I think that that mentality, that confidence that the CEOs have and the leadership team have and the managers have, it flows down to every single person. And I genuinely, that is what I find most inspiring about this company. It's amazing because it's
Do you
real.
get, yeah, do you get to work a lot with the founders or with the senior leadership team?
Yeah, loads actually. So it was founded by two brothers. One's the CEO and one's the CTO. Um, and the CEO I work with on a daily basis. He's still sort of in the trenches, very, very hands-on. Um, he did close a funding round recently, and closing that has freed up quite a lot of his time, which is great. But he wears a lot of hats. He's acting, he does a lot of oversight of operations, oversight of finance. So yeah, we work with him constantly. And he's incredibly approachable as well. Like he will
Mm.
sit with anyone in the company, and you can have a beer after work with him if you want to. You can talk about Game of Thrones, or you can talk about the business. You can get to know him as a person and a friend, or you can really sort of talk about the future and what's happening and what's going on. So it's really, yeah, it's good. He's not detached from it at all. I think that does come though with it being such a new company.
Mm.
As companies mature, I think it's easier for people to get further detached from it.
With that direct line that you've got to CEO, I mean, what kind of things are you learning from him?
I don't know how to phrase it basically, but when I present problems to him, he'll often come at it from a completely different perspective. So I'll come at him with an issue, and I'll be like, "So we've got this going on, and this is what I think we're going to have to do, but we'll be raising it in a one-to-one," and he'll just approach it from a completely different perspective. And seeing these different perspectives is fascinating. It's really, really interesting.
When I used to work with my manager, line manager, who was a chief executive, and he would often, I'd speak for 3 minutes or even 5 minutes, and he'd just sum everything up within 15 seconds. How did you do that? He would just reconstruct everything that I've just said. and he'll present it in a much more simpler way. And he'll have these really interesting ways of quantifying things and just getting from position from A to B. So what you really want to do, and I'll be sharing my screen with him, right? And it might be some customer satisfaction data that I'm looking at. And so what you say basically, so okay, so you've got 12 business units or six business units, sorry. And you got two that are you want to move from column A to column B to look like column C. It's really simple stuff like that, really layman terms. Then what you touched on is he's probably looking down the line, not just in the here and now. And he's saying, okay, if I make the decision now, what's it going to look like when we're a national chain? Sometimes I think, I don't know if you found this. Do you find that sometimes senior leaders they pose questions just to stress test an idea, not necessarily because they want to change your thinking, but it's just to make sure something's been explored and you've not left a stone sort of unturned?
Absolutely. What we're thinking about when we're thinking about, I'm heading this property management team, so a lot of my decisions are about what's the best answer to this situation that can be applied to other situations as well. Because we want to try and find answers that we can
Mm,
apply where possible to different situations so the team know how to do things going forwards. But if we're talking about a company that's growing at this pace, we're in London at the moment, but we're going to Bath and Bristol, and we're going to Reading, and we're going to
mm,
Birmingham soon. We're expanding, and we're going to be national before we know it. That there are different things that you have to be in your
mm,
mind for that. So I think it comes from the board. I think it comes from the trajectory that the company's going in. Um, so yeah, I think it's to do with the leadership team would be my guess. My focus can be on my team,
mm,
but there's lots of teams in this company. We've got five of them. So sometimes you need to think outside of like your world, your
mm.
box that you're in. And I consciously try to do that, but it's hard to apply that at every second. And
Yeah.
there may be things going on in other teams. Maybe they're confidential. Maybe you don't know about it. Maybe you don't need to know.
Mm,
Um, but your decision may impact them, or at the very least, it may set a standard or a way of doing things. So a lot of it is about just having a more holistic view of the company,
mm.
whereas a manager of a set team will have a more specialized, zoomed in view.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, thinking strategically, is part of that process of thinking holistically and having a bird's eye view on the company. It's hard though. I can imagine it's hard when you fit into one piece of the puzzle and you don't see the whole puzzle,
Yeah.
which can make it quite hard.
So I'm trying to think a level above where I am currently with certain decisions, trying to think about how it impacts the company going forwards. And also trying to find out the reason why behind as many things as possible. If there's ever a decision or a new process or something that you don't understand and you can't see why it's happening, find out, ask.
Mm, mm,
Um, because the people making these decisions, they're smart, intelligent people, and they'll have a
mm,
reason for it. So if it's not immediately apparent, then find out what the reason is. And then if you're a manager, go to mandate that out to your team, don't just mandate it. Explain that reasoning. You might not be able to explain everything, but you can certainly explain some of it. And then if your team understand the reasons behind these decisions, everyone's unified and pointing in
mm.
the same direction, it's very easy to become, a bit disenfranchised with it. You're like, why has this decision been
Hard,
made?
but that's where I think where the company is going to grow, and you've already grown from 13 to 60, and then at some point you're going to hit 100. That's where it's going to be really, really difficult to get the cascading and sharing of information going across all levels of the organization, vertically, horizontally.
One thing that we're piloting at the moment, we've been doing it for a couple of months, is where we've introduced matrix teams into the company
Ah,
as well. This is mainly for like the operations teams. So we've got our landlord acquisition team who are tasked with just bringing on that 200 landlords a month. We've got our account managers who carry out the tenant find for landlords. So put the property on Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market, all the rest of it, arrange the viewings, carry them out, negotiate it, get the tenancy agreements done, references, and move the tenants in. And then we've got the property management team, my team, who then manage that property for the duration of the tenancy. Um, and as the teams grew bigger and bigger, we didn't fit into like a single office. So we started splintering out into separate offices. And then doors start to close. And then people get like more separated from each other. So we introduced matrix teams where we've got two matrix teams at the moment and may expand into more of them. But we've got some people from the landlord acquisition team working with some people from the account management team, with some people from the property management team. And that would be team A. And then you've got the same for team B. And the idea is that that landlord that comes on from, say, John from the landlord acquisition team would go to Sophie in the account management team, would go to Ellie in the property management team. And then a year later at relet, it would go back and they'd flow through the teams. And
Mm,
then these teams all work closer together. They get to see the challenges and successes that
mm,
each other are facing. And they get to own that deal, that relationship with the landlord throughout the lifespan of it. So we're really trying to break down the barriers between teams and try and have people be closer knit and
mm,
keep these relationships going even as we scale. It's going to be really good because as we scale, as we get bigger, we're going to get more local as well, which seems weird. It seems counterintuitive, but with these teams, we call them neighborhood teams. And we're
ah,
going to have one team, we might just split London into quadrants. We might have four teams, and each
mm,
team takes a quadrant of London. But then when we've got 3,000 properties under management, maybe we have 20 teams. And maybe we have, a team for Reading, a team for Brighton, a team for
mm.
Bristol. Um, so we can have these specialist teams that work in different areas, all the while keeping each other closely knit and interlinked.
In terms of building your team, clearly you run one of the three major
Hmm.
departments in the company, and it's growing. And as you said, you're going to potentially need to, think of new ways of structuring your team. Do you do kind of long-term planning of that, like what 12-month, 18-month sort of resource workforce planning, or do you just take each quarter as it comes?
So we mapped out at the start of the year. We mapped out the 12 months. But it is very hard, especially given current market conditions.
Mm,
Liz Truss had a budget in November last year that's
mm,
just put the entire economy into turmoil, and had a profound impact on the housing market. And even for lettings, we're seeing severe ramifications for that to this day. Landlords exiting the market at a fast rate. Um, so it's really hard to map out too far ahead
mm,
with fast changing market conditions. There's also this thing called the Renters Reform Bill that's going to be coming into
mm.
effect in 2024. May get delayed, we'll see. But that will fundamentally change everything. It would be the biggest legislative change to the housing market since 1988. It's going to be huge, absolutely dramatic. 12 months is what we looked at first. And then obviously we review it quarterly and monthly and plan based on targets that are being hit, amount of landlords that are being onboarded, retention rates for management. Um, but yeah, it's hard to forecast too much beyond like obviously what we want to aspire to. Like we've got numbers that we want to hit over the next 12, 24, 36 months that
And have you
we're.
have you, have you got a possible blueprint? So if you know what if everything paid off and went your way,
Mhm.
and over the next 24, 36 months, and do you then overlay that with a blueprint of the size of team or type of teams you could need if everything went well, and then you just track to that and see if it paying off?
Absolutely. So we've tried to maths it out logically
Mm,
based on if we're onboarding 200 landlords a month and we win, 90% of those deals, we've then got 180 landlords that we're moving properties in on. If
mm,
we convert, say, 70% of that to management, you've then got X amount of managed properties as well. Well, if a property manager can handle 5 new properties a week, because onboarding is a huge amount of work and you've got your existing portfolio to deal with as well, you can then just maths out how many property managers you need to deal with those 200 landlords that you've onboarded.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad you went that direction, and I was giving you like a thumbs up to keep going because we have a leading people module. All the nails that we talk about on the course, which is using some ratios or customer to staff ratios, which is what you talked about there, landlord. So you've got some ratios, how much a person can hold in terms of workload, and then you just sort of, I guess, extrapolate from there. And
Yeah,
then you see at what point, I guess, does it become just crazy because you can't keep adding more and more people. At what point do you need to take a holistic review? And then you did touch upon other things that you need to take into account, which is external environment. So if there are pressures coming down the track where you talk about renters reform bill, which could radically change the industry, if that's gonna you're gonna scenario plan, right? Is that gonna have a major knock-on impact on our business? Is it gonna dampen the growth line that we're expecting? In which case, your resource plans that you're building for a much higher growth rate is going to be a bit lower. So but you said there's never a fixed answer, right? You've got to do enough planning so that you're not walking in blind, but you've got to be
100%.
ready to adapt, I guess.
And these numbers that come from these models that we've created, they're never 100%,
Yeah.
obviously. Like things can change. You can win more deals one month, you can lose more the next. Like things happen, but they give you a trend, and those trends are very useful, and that's what you can base your decisions off. You have to be flexible, absolutely.
We've only got about 8 minutes left before the 40 minutes kicks off. I can't believe it's already been half an hour. It's been so fun. I hope you're okay with the way we're flowing the questions.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
absolutely.
building on what you're saying. It's so good. It's so good. I'm learning a lot as well. So you're obviously now head of department, a manager of a sort of sizable team. What's your career journey been like? How did you get yourself into a position? Because there will be people who are watching this who are, just perhaps just starting out or
Sure.
want to take that next step in their career. How did you prepare yourself for a role like this that you're doing now? And then the second part to that question is, what are you preparing yourself for next? What's on your sort of, learning development plan?
Well, it's interesting. So my journey, I started out just as basically an office administrator in a letting agent when I moved to London. And for me, it's always just been about um, you've got to excel at everything you're doing. Like you may not get rewarded for excelling and going above and beyond on that literal day that you've done your hard day's work, but you put yourself in a position to be able to take opportunities when they do arise. So so for me, like I've always been able to, well, I've been very fortunate that I've been able to when when a PM position became available and I'd been an office administrator in a letting agent for a little while, I could step into that and have a go at it and then excel at that and become senior and then change companies. And then when I'd moved to my new company, my manager left. And it's just all about that mentality of just trying to excel at what you're doing so that when an opportunity does come, um, you're ready to take it rather than just going through the day-to-day motions. And then when an opportunity comes, you weren't there. It's not ready for you to jump on and grab. Um, as far as what like the future, I don't really know. We're going to see how far Hello Neighbour goes. The next step for me, I think, is going to be instead of managing a department, it'll be managing, there's only so many people that one person can manage. And we're getting to like 7 or 8 people now, and that's quite a lot for a manager. So soon, at some point, we're going to have multiple managers for the PM team, and then they'll need someone to manage them. And touch wood, hopefully, that's where I see my progression going. So, yeah, head of departments, stepping up a level, zooming out a level, and seeing these greater challenges and greater problems, and shaping the trajectory and direction of what best practice looks like in the PM field.
Love the way you've shaped the trajectory of your role. They painted a great picture. So as you start to hopefully, who knows, but as you start to build yourself to perhaps manage managers and your team is growing, what will you be trying to expose yourself to, and what kind of skills will you be trying to pick up or experience will you be trying to gain?
It's going to be a lot of it's about process and about trying to look at the bigger picture. Um, trying to put the structures in place to scale. Not just things that will work for today, because this isn't a company that's about today. This is a company that's about 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So trying to learn from the leadership team, from the CEO, from these people around me, um, and think about, 12, 24 months rather than the day-to-day management.
Forward looking. It's great. That's just fascinating story, and I'm really keen to understand and learn more about. I'm really eager to learn more about your next chapter of the next 12 months. Maybe we'll have you back on the show, mate. It's great news. And you got, yeah,
Absolutely.
have you got an equity stake? Are you one of the guys who's got an equity stake in the company? Have they given you that?
Yeah, well, every single person in the company gets an equity stake. How much you get depends on your position, and you get it over 5 years with a 1 year clear. Um, but yeah, the logic being that fairness is we've all put work into this. We all deserve to reap those rewards. So, you know, we aspire to become the biggest letting agent in the country, and we'll see how it goes.
You go from being an office administrator to being a head of department with an equity stake in one of the fastest growing prop tech companies in the UK.
100%. It's nuts.
Mate, I think that's just beautiful. We don't need to go any further because I think we covered so much ground. Thank you, mate. I
Fantastic.
really appreciate this, honestly.
Well, thank you so much. Genuine pleasure. Yeah, let me know if you want to do it again sometime.
We will. I probably like we'll do 12-month on follow up or something like that. Probably 6 month, given how the fast rate that you guys are climbing. But honestly, it's going to be such a great the way you succinctly broke them down. I like the way you gave the example of 3 departments because I want to help people understand your role, how it fits in, and who you work with. And just one of the questions on the thing is, we didn't touch the one about a favorite term, like a key business term. Just quickly, in a very simple way. So, as part of our 1,000 business vocabulary word it's part of our 1,000 word business vocabulary that we kind of build to help people think about business and talk more confidently in business. Is there any one term that you come up with that you think that you've learned that would really help other people?
Sure. One thing that we've been looking at specifically recently is churn rates. We don't lock people into our management. So churn rate refers generally to the amount of customers or subscribers that you lose or stop using your product or service over a period of time. So for us, retention rates are king, and focusing on that has been a major objective.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good. No, good stuff, mate. Thanks for coming along. I really appreciate it. But so grateful, mate. I think. How do you feel? Are you feeling okay? I didn't put too much on you, did I?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's absolutely fine.